Happy Tuesday and welcome to the Sportsline podcast here on CHCH. I'm Bubba O'Neil. Well, if you're a regular, you know this to be true, but if you're a newbie, we love to focus our attention on the many outstanding athletes, coaches, and executives that have come from or reside in Southern Ontario. Now, with that said, maybe once a week, we like to put our guests to the test with the Sportsline Square Off. Our writer first and foremost, but this individual has taken his talents to another level. For over 25 years, Scott Radley is read daily on a sports and news level at the Hamilton Spectator. His portfolio grew as a guest and later the host of his own 2-hour program on AM 900 CHML. Now, following several guest appearances on local cable television, TSN, Sun TV, he's become a trusted fill-in co-host on Sportsline here on CHCH. So we bring him back after about a little bit more than a month to come up and do the Sportsline Square Off. I don't know if you're going to remember.
No, we remember this. I'm just trying to keep up with Simone Lawrence. I'm trying to keep appearance for appearance with Simone. I have a feeling I'm going to fall off soon.
Yeah, you actually should have been beating him one because his second appearance really was unexpected.
Well, I don't know what he's going to do to keep coming on. What news can Simone Lawrence continue to come back? He's going to come back.
We kind of went over that, right? And a lot of people are wondering about maybe Labor Day. Let's see what happens. So, hey, Scott, so much going on in your life right now, and but on a personal level, we got to see something on social media. I knew a little bit about it from previous. You're a different person right now. Your in-laws, the word is that yes. Now graces your life now and your family's life. Congratulations.
Thanks. I got to walk my daughter down the aisle on Saturday, and I had only two things that I feared, and they didn't happen. Thank goodness. Yeah, there it is. There's a nice picture of her. One of them, I checked probably 35 times to make sure my fly was up. I thought, I am not walking down the aisle hanging low. And the other one was don't fall. I don't have a problem with tripping over my own feet, but if there was ever a moment when you're like, okay, this is the time I cannot go down, it's like walking down the aisle, but all good, all clear.
First time, how did that feel?
It was first time and last time because I have another son, but I won't be walking him down the aisle.
That's true.
It was one of the great moments of my life. It really was. You don't know. I mean, look, so many people listening and watching will have done it. I mean, this is certainly nothing new for most people, but it was for me, and it was amazing.
I think it has to be amazing because I could see the emotion certainly right in all of your face right now. And I know from other people, myself, I don't have kids or whatever, but I can relate through so many others, even my sister, of what that is going to feel like. And, you said you got a son now. I mean, as you said, it'll be a different sort of wedding. But again, in its own ways to you and your wife, job well done.
Yeah. And you know what? It's different, I think, being the father of the bride. Steve Martin never made a movie called Father of the Groom, right? Yeah. Father of the Bride is a unique thing, and, it was a great day. It was a great experience. It was, everything went as perfectly as it possibly could, and so, Victoria and Dan, way to go.
Right on. Well, I guess that's for you and your wife right now. You've been so stressed out, I think, for all of this. It's probably time to take another cruise. You love cruises.
Oh, we do.
You love cruises more than anyone else. What?
Yeah, before the wedding. We took our daughter with us for one last sort of, time. And it's just such a great, I feel like I'm a cruise travel agent now.
What is it? You've taken them more than anyone else I know. What is it? Almost 2 a year?
No. One a year usually. And I'll tell you a funny story on this one. We, and this may be of interest to some people, or absolutely you can just go grab a coffee for the rest of you for a minute. We pulled into the port in St. Thomas this time, and there is this enormous sailboat beside us on the dock, just on the other side of the pier. And I mean, enormous. And I finally noticed there was a nameplate on the front of the ship, so I did a little Googling, and it was Jeff Bezos' new $500 million sailboat. And now I'm just sitting there for an hour watching to see if Jeff Bezos will come up the dock. And I was like, okay, I got to grab him to come on my radio show. I don't know how I was going to get him. And I probably shouldn't be thinking about work when I'm away. But he did not appear. But, I mean, it's amazing what $500 million will buy you.
You know, and you talk about these cruises, and it's something you do like to do, and I've never taken one.
No.
And I know you've said you got to go. And some people, friends of mine, and it's neat though. I think there's an interesting dynamic. I have friends and family that have gone and rave about them, and I have some friends and family that have gone and said they'll never do it again. What is it about the cruises that are so special for you and your wife?
You know what? I mean, look, there's lots of people who work hard. I mean, I do the spec and I do the rate. When I go away, I just want to turn my brain off for a week, honestly. I mean, when I said I was Googling that boat, that was like the first time I looked up anything on Google that week.
No sports.
No, I just like just purge your brain. In fact, I'll read a lot when I'm there, but I have a policy that any books I read cannot enhance my gray matter in any way. They have to be mindless. And so a few years ago, for example, I went and read the biography of Kiss.
Wow.
Which was great because it was like, it was fun and it was interesting, and yet it's not going to apply to my life in any way. I'm not going to learn how to blow fire or spit blood or, play bass or wear giant boots or anything. But that's the kind of thing. And so it's just, you go away, you're just floating around, and you can't go anywhere because you're on a ship and you're sort of forced to relax. I really sound like I should be a cruise agent. I should get a fee for doing this. Anyone who books a cruise after this, mention me and tell the agent to give me a free one.
Well, I think you've also said something about there's good meals too.
There are some meals. There is food available. There's food available. There's great entertainment. They bring you the occasional beverage. There are, it's sunny, it's warm, well, mostly sunny. You know what? As I say, I love traveling as well and seeing places, but this is a different kind of thing from that. This is the kind of thing where you are going, for me anyway, just to shut it down for a week. It's like going, if you go up north to the cottage and you go, like that's the other one, I'll go out fishing.
Right.
1 week a year, I'll rent a 14-foot tin can boat and just go out and just, and mindless. I mean, some people fishing is you're really bearing down and trying to figure out, I'm casting, I don't know what I'm doing. Just the sound of the waves hitting the boat, it's just like, okay, my brain can breathe.
Yeah, I can relate. There is something about being in northern Ontario or even northern Quebec and just, got one.
I don't even care. I mean, I do. You want to catch something, but I don't care. I'm just out there relaxing.
Turning to sports here, we've had some interesting developments in, I guess, really, I would say, in our business and in your business in particular, with the likes of Peter King, who have been around for, almost 50 years writing for the National Football League, and he's called it, I think, kind of a semi-retirement, but he said, but mostly retirement. And the likes of a Chris Mortensen, was someone that has been around for many, many years, award-winning, who's very much like yourself, reminds me of yourself in the sense that he was a writer first and foremost, but also became a television personality, reporter, breaking news. We're kind of getting to an era, to a part of our lives where a lot of these people that we kind of looked up to and maybe read, they're starting to pass, and it's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, well, pass, or as you say, like Peter King retire, Steve Milton just retiring.
There you go.
We were talking before the show about Helene Elliott, who was the first female sports columnist at the LA Times, just retired, 40-something years covering the Kings and Ducks and all those teams down there. Yeah, it is different. And what's different, I think last time, if they go back and look at the previous podcast you and I did, I think we talked about this a little. It's the media world, the sports media world is changing a little bit. And I don't know that there is another Peter King, because I don't know that there is, like, he was the Sports Illustrated guy. Well, Sports Illustrated is now gone. There will be people, of course, who will report. But it will be in a different venue. It'll be a different medium. It'll be a different way. And, one of the things Peter King became so famous for was these enormous Monday morning, thousands of words from all over the NFL. Well, these days, a lot of people's attention span doesn't make it through a tweet. To sit down and read 5,000 or 6,000 words is unique. And I don't know that we're going to see that again. And if we do, I don't know that we're going to see it in a I'll use the word credible, but like a legacy or credible publication. It'll be online
for sure,
and it could be really credible. I'm not saying everything online isn't, but it's not going to be the same kind of thing.
Well, it's funny that you say that, and what is just one of the things I picked up I mean, early in my days at Sportsnet, watching some of the people that I really, admire, coming to Hamilton, watching the likes, as you said, of a Steve Milton, and the wonderment of what you guys do compared to what I do, where, I have a 6 or 7 minute sportscast, and I'm just there to grab a clip about what I want to talk about or what the information or the news of the day is. People like yourself, Steve Milton, you would get to know people. You get to sit down and talk to an athlete.
Not as much now. I mean, I can tell you of days in the past when, back in the AHL days of the Hamilton Bulldogs, speaking in Hamilton, where you would go in the dressing room and sit down and, have long talks with guys. Now, it's all very regulated. They will bring someone out to you and you'll stand in front of a backdrop, and there will be oftentimes in any sport, a media relations, PR team, communications person standing beside you and listening in, or I mean, some people will say it's not better or worse, it's just different. I would say it's not as good. You got so many great stories. I'll tell you a funny one that from that was years ago when Mike Komisarek was playing for the Hamilton Bulldogs,
right.
Former Montreal Canadian, former Toronto Maple Leaf. He was on his way up. He might have been in his second year. And they brought in, all of a sudden, a defense partner for him, a guy named Jay Vancic, who had been his defense partner at the University of Michigan. They had always played together. Vancic was not the prospect that Komisarek was, but I guess they figured, like, they were so good at Michigan, put them back together, sign them. And I'm talking to one of the two of them in the dressing room after a practice about the other. And they told me like a hilarious story about the other guy. And so after we're done talking, I went over to the other one. I said, you know what, Jay, you know what Mike just told me about you at Michigan? And he goes, he said that? Well, let me tell you about him. And he fires a story back. And I'm now going back and forth in the dressing room. And they're watching now, the other guy, and seeing how hard I laughed to top it. And it was a great story. That kind of thing, you might get it now, but it would be so difficult because now, as I say, they bring someone out, you talk to them, and then they're gone because they're off to the weight room or they're in the shower or
they just don't want to be there.
There are guys and women who are happy to talk and are good at it, and there's other ones that even if you get them, they don't necessarily want to talk. That's absolutely true, and that's always been the case. I mean, that's not different. There were guys, even when you were spending a lot more time, there were guys who didn't really want to talk. But more often than not, if you just sat down and chatted, as opposed to them feeling like it was an interview.
Right.
Now, if I'm an athlete, every one of these things feels like not a conversation. It feels like an interview. And there's a difference. There's a difference between those two. And even some of the times that someone might tell you just a story and go, look, I don't want this published, or I don't want my name attached to this. And that's fine. It's just a little bit of information that down the road you might, you might remember or something. Those conversations are way harder to do now. Way harder.
I think of the best storytelling that I can do sometimes on television will come from maybe those press conferences, but the background that I can give is because I've had some of those sit-down conversations after, or maybe, hey, can we talk another time elsewhere, or drop me a text or whatever, and you actually have a conversation with some of the athletes, Tiger Cats. You could go on, and then you get that depth. And you're right, though, but it's just so difficult in the way media is run right now, and yeah, you're right. I don't know if it's more credible or what, or I don't know what's right or what's wrong.
It's just more regulated.
Yeah,
it's so much more, and the message is more controlled.
Yeah,
and I can't say this for all the teams around here with certainty, but I suspect that oftentimes certain issues, guys are whispered in their ear. Yeah, don't.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't talk
you
about
don't have
this.
I've seen it.
Don't talk about this.
Don't talk about this.
They won't say, right? Usually the PR person, the media person doesn't come up to me or you and say, Bob is not going to speak about this. He was just quietly told, if that topic comes up, just say, no comment or whatever. Comment. And so it's different. And I can tell you from a writing perspective, so many of the best stories that I've done over the years, my favorite stories, the ones that I think were really good, were not from a set up, official, regulated talk.
Yeah.
It was from just a conversation where you're two people talking. Because honestly, like, think about, you're sitting around the coffee table with a friend or at a bar with a friend having a beer, and the stories they tell are always better than the ones they would tell if their mom was sitting there.
That's right.
Right? And so now you've got a team employee listening in. The team employee, by the way, if things go south, that team employee is going to get pooped on by the people above him.
That's right.
So they want to make sure this doesn't go into any kind of territory that is, delicate. So it's different, and I think it explains. That's one of the things to bring this back. Peter King had those connections. He was one of those guys who had connections, could call up anybody in the league. They knew him. They had talked to him. They had a trust in him. They would tell him stuff. That's so much harder to do now.
I never asked you this question, but, we talk about some of the old timers, we'll call them, that we're now getting into. Anyone you would call a hero, or someone that you looked up to, or say, I'd like to model my work after you, or, is there anyone?
I don't know if there is one. It's more certain stories. So I don't know that there was one particular person, but I would very often read a story by someone and go, oh, that was amazing. Kim Mitchell used to do a radio show at Q107 in Toronto. And he had a segment, and I forgive me, Kim, if I get the name right, but I think it was I Wish I Wrote That. And he would play this thing, and it was all about, man, I wish I had written that song, because it's such a great song.
Yeah.
And I would say that I have the same thing. I would read a story and go, oh, man, I wish I had written that. What a great story. And so, and that means that there are an awful lot of people that, whether you call them heroes or people that you admire, that you, the thing that I've always admired, and it's not just one person, I've always admired the people who can sit there, watch a game, and have a flow of words to fingers and just type it in like 10 minutes, and it's brilliant. That's not me. I have lots of ideas, and I put them down, I move them around, and I massage them, and I put it in order, and I spend more time, more often, writing it. But those people that it just flows from brain to fingers to computer to gone, that has always amazed me.
It is, and I've seen some of those people at work, and you're right. It is amazing to watch anyone like that in any industry, whether it be television, radio, or print, and they just, whether it's a photographic memory or a story, or let me tell you something about it happened 30 years ago, and the way they retell that story, kind of like it was just yesterday, and I'm like, why would you? How? How'd you remember that? Or those little tiny details? Right?
Well, see, details are okay, because and you are the same, I think. I got stuff in my brain. If your brain has limited capacity, I need to shed a bunch of the stuff, because I got things in there that are so stupid. Facts,
clear the cache.
Memories, and then I can't, like when I was in high school, I would know, Daryl Sittler, every stat, Rocky Saganuk. One of my heroes as a hockey. I loved Rocky Saganuk when I was a kid. I would know everything about Rocky Saganuk. Now, ask me to do a physics equation? No chance. Remember anything from history? Not a hope. But you tell me, how did Rocky Saganuk do against the California Golden Seals last week?
Wow.
And boom, I would tell you how many shifts he had. Mike Palmateer, Peter Ing. Oh, not Peter Ing. That was a little
in a check, though.
In a check. Bernie Perront.
Oh, yes.
Bernie Perront was my all-time hero. Still is, and I've one of these days. That's the one guy. He's the one guy that I want to interview. Just not that anyone else would be interested. Just because he was my hero as a kid. Do you have one of those? That one person you want to interview?
That's a great question. I'd love to.
Not because they're necessarily just great, but because they were the person. Maybe nobody else would want to hear it, except you'd love to have that conversation.
You're not going to want to hear this. Only because of what he did on the football field, and then what happened after, folks.
I know who is going. Does it have two initials in the first name?
You know it.
Yeah. Mr. Simpson. Yeah, it would be
Put on the glove.
It would be a fascinating interview.
It really would be and I say that because of what he did. He was one of those transcendent athletes that people, if you're of a certain ilk or age, my generation, the generation before myself, one of the first people in sports to go Hollywood, to be in Hollywood movies, like Towering Inferno, Airplane, you go on and on. He was an accepted athlete, black. The commercials that he did, the Hertz one, advertising, he was massive, more than a sports star, and then just an incredible football player.
Yep.
And then that.
If you stopped the clock of time prior to June 94 or 93?
94, I think.
Whatever it was. If you could have frozen time at that moment and then jumped us back to O.J. Simpson would be one of the biggest stars in the world. And it's just that thing. But I mean, that's a great one to want to talk to. But and that would, but see, the difference is mine would be just fanboying over Bernie Perron, who was my all-time hero. Yours would be one that everybody would want to hear.
No, there'd be fanboy too, man. The guy ran for over 2,000 yards in 14 games. So that's never been done.
No. All right, here's one. So if you bumped into O.J. Simpson, you're walking through an airport now, and there's O.J. Simpson. First of all, would you go up and talk to him?
I'd have to.
Would you shake his hand?
Ooh.
Because that almost indicates a greeting or a level of respect. That's anytime you run into a guy who's not a good guy necessarily, I always think, do you shake their hand?
Well, for the longest time, I thought he was innocent.
Well,
so I probably would shake his hand.
Still?
Maybe.
All right, so you shake his hand.
I want the interview, Scott.
I have a few more doubts than you, perhaps.
I want the interview.
Yeah, well,
you ready to square off?
All right, let's do this. It's been a while.
Yeah, this has been a long time since we did this.
Air?
I guess it was 2016, I think.
All right,
we went for 5 years and
7 years, 8 years.
Yeah, and you were our number one fill-in co-host. I mean, so you know exactly what's going on here. So let's square it off, folks. Hey, those Maple Leafs, they've won 9 of their last 11. They're third in the Atlantic Division, and it's interesting, though. You take a look at those 2 losses to the Boston Bruins last night, 4-1. As Mike Babcock used to say, guys, you got to start on time. They did not start on time, and they got completely dominated by the defending Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights. Even on the weekend, they beat the Rangers in a shootout, but could have not given away that extra point to the New York Rangers because they felt they were napping in the final minute of the game. So what is your outlook of the Maple Leafs? We're getting up to the trade deadline at the end of the week. What do you think about this team? Third in the Atlantic right now. Can they threaten, Scott?
All right, I was looking down because I have to pull up my phone here because there was a tweet that was posted last night about a quote that John Tavares gave after the game. All right, it was from Terry Koshan of the Toronto Sun. Playing against a team like Boston and games down the stretch, margins are very small. It's a good lesson for us today. It's a good lesson? How many lessons can the Toronto Maple Leafs possibly learn? Every single year they come to the end of the playoffs, they skate off the ice in dejection and shame, and they stand in front of the microphone and they say, well, it's a good lesson for us. They have PhDs in hockey dejection now. They've had so many lessons. It's next time John Tavares or any other player says this is a good lesson for us, someone should take a shovel and bang it off their helmet. Enough with the lessons. That's why I still, especially if they play Boston, because Boston just showed last night, they've got the formula. I just look at this and I think if you couldn't get up for Boston, if you need more lessons at this point, there's no chance.
Remember last year after they got rid of Tampa in the 7-game series, they finally reached the mountaintop of winning a playoff series. I laugh at that because that was like the greatest accomplishment. We won a playoff series. And they're like, who do you want next? And everyone's like, oh, give us Florida. Give us Florida. Well, I'll tell you something. You don't want a piece of Florida right now.
Or Boston.
Or Boston. Like those two teams right now, they play a style of hockey that I don't know if the Leafs can play.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, look what happened yesterday. Again, when you're playing against Boston, what did Boston do? They locked down Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and said to the rest of the team, "You go ahead and beat us." And who beat them? Nobody. The goaltending for Boston was superior. Now, I think Joseph Woll didn't have his best game nonetheless. To me, it's not about skill. The Leafs have skill, like all the skill they need. But how is it that every time there's a big game, it seems, especially against this team, you are the less competitive group? That to me, I hate the phrase, the guy's got a compete level. I hate that beyond all. I hate that cliche.
Compete level and active sticks.
Yeah. But, okay, if we're going to use it, though, why are the Leafs, when it comes to playoffs, why is the compete level seemingly always lower than their opponent? And even last year when they lost to Tampa, I don't know that, were they the more competitive team? I mean, it was maybe even. But when was the last playoff series where you looked and you said, you know what, the Leafs lost because they ran only into a hot goalie, they hit a bunch of goalposts, they were just unlucky, but man, they were the more competitive, harder working team. I don't remember it.
The only one I think that I might lean there, Scott, is and I don't even know if this season counts. It's the North Division thing. Remember when they lost to Montreal and really deserved a better fate? Carey Price, really, that was his swan song. Right. It turns out to be a swan song of his career. He was so unbelievable, and the Habs just had this crazy timely scoring. That's the only one.
But were the Leafs more competitive? Were they the harder working team? That's my question. So maybe right. They were competitive, but did they work harder? When was the last Leafs playoff series where they left the ice? You said they worked harder. There's no question which team. It was just unlucky. They have not lost unlucky.
No.
They've lost by effort, mostly.
The crazy thing is, too, I talked about the 2 losses in the 11 games that they've played. And then, again, the Rangers game. Amazing to think that in those losses, as you talk about, the guy who's going to maybe score 70 goals, no goals. And I think people forget this, is that when you get into a postseason series,
they're going to lock him down.
You get locked down. Like as he's talking about, secondary scoring, third line scoring becomes so important. But in those situations, you've got to have your best players showing up against those teams at those times. And as much as we all love Austin Matthews, and he may well be the Hart Trophy winner, his history has been, and Mitch Marner. Well, let's not talk about Mitch Marner in the postseason as well.
So the theory is, Bubba, that when Treliving brought in Max Domi, yep. And what's his name? Long hair, got it cut. I'm drawing a blank on his name. The winger. Bertuzzi, yeah. Thank you. Those guys were playoff players. Mm-hmm. And so we will see, because that is going to determine a ton, because we saw from Boston, they will lock down Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews. They will check them into the ice. So if you're going to spend your time doing that to them, it is these alleged playoff guys in Domi and Bertuzzi who are going to have to score a ton to loosen up the checking on Matthews. And if they still don't want to loosen up the checking on that line, you keep scoring. And then Tavares in the third line. But if you are relying only on those guys in that first line to do it, I don't love their chances.
Let's see what Treliving does at the trade deadline, if there's any additions, any more secondary scoring, because you're right. I think they certainly, even though some of those guys have showed up lately, they're going to need an injection of, I think, even more so. Professional Women's Hockey League made an announcement last week. Now, if the playoffs were to end or begin today, you'd have Montreal, Minnesota, Toronto, and Boston, oddly enough, as your teams that would make the playoffs right now. So here's the situation of what they have done. They have made you want to call it quirky? I don't know what you want to call it. Montreal, who finished first, will have the ability in the semifinals, because they go semifinals and then finals. They will have an ability to choose their opponent. It will not be like most sports where one plays 4 and 3 plays 2. Montreal will have the ability to choose whether they want to play the third place team or the fourth place team. Do you like this playoff format, Scott?
You think they will? Before I answer that question, do you think Montreal would do anything other than take the fourth place team?
I don't know. Maybe your regular season series have a lot to do with it. I don't know. And you're right, because how could you not want to play the team that's furthest below you? That's my thought. But
For two reasons. And so to answer your question, I love this. I think this is a great idea. I just don't know that it's ever going to, well, maybe we'll be surprised, but if you're the fourth place team, let's say you're not the fourth place team. Let's say you're third place and Montreal finishes first and they say, we want to play you. You've got such bulletin board. They always talk about bulletin board material. You are now so insulted. You are so disrespected. I just don't see that a lot of teams are going to want to fire up their opponents more. It's an easy thing to say, look, we are going to play the fourth place team. No disrespect to them. This is just how the playoffs work. You decide you're going to play team in second place or team in third place. I know if I was in the room of the second place or third place team, what would be being said and what we'd be talking about. And it would be, I would think it would be incredibly motivating. I don't know, you need to light that fire under another team.
Well, you say you like this. I mean,
I do like the idea.
Let's just take a look at the idea and expand it to, say, even the National Hockey League. Because, the PWHL is only dealing with a limited amount of teams. But if you take it to a broadband NBA and NHL sort of situation, you're right. It could be total chaos, right? Because, say, I want to play the 8th place team is what it would end up being. Right?
Well, but they would use it, though. I think in the NHL especially. So I've been lobbying for a long time now that the NHL playoffs should go back to 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15. But if you were just to do it by that measure, if you're the NHL, I guarantee some teams would use this. And I'll tell you who, for example. Whoever is in the West, because the Oilers' terrible start, they're not going to probably finish first. I don't want to run into the Edmonton Oilers until I absolutely have to.
It's true.
So if they are my matchup and I can get around that, I will do that. And I'll pick a team that's coming into the playoffs cold. But that's 1 versus 16 or even 1 versus 8. I think there's a better chance that a team might jump on board that kind of idea.
Isn't it kind of gadgety, though? Like,
sure.
I mean, do we need this?
You don't need it, but it's the same way I loved when the All-Star game has the player draft. It's gadgety, but it's fun, and it adds a level of...
But it's an All-Star game, though.
I know, but it adds another level of something to talk about, something to write about, and if some team ever does decide to use this, it's a great storyline, especially if then the team that they handpicked comes and smacks them and knocks them out. Then it's just, and even if a PWHL team does this, I think it'll happen. Somebody might do it until that first time that the underdog beats them up, and then it's like, yeah, we don't need that anymore. And if you're the coach or the GM and you made that decision, now you got to answer to your own.
You're fired.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it's just one more thing you screwed up.
I will say I give the PWHL a lot of credit. They are trying things.
Sure.
They are, unlike several other leagues in professional sports that just don't do anything. It takes them a million years to make any rule changes. I give them credit. I like this whole thing about, if you're shorthanded and you score a shorthanded goal, it's like the get out of jail. Like, that is the greatest thing. You're right. If I'm shorthanded and I score, yeah, my guy's out of the penalty box or my girl's out of the penalty box. I love it.
This seems like a league that they have tapped into the spirit of Roger Nielsen, who was the guy who back in the day was the guy who came up with, he found every loophole. I don't know if you remember some of the things that he did that changed rules. When he pulled his goalie, he would get his goalie to lay his stick along the top of the goal, the crease, so that someone from the other team who shot the puck the length of the ice, it would hit the stick and stay out of the net, and that became a penalty. And then he was the guy who, you were shorthanded 2 men near the end of the game, and the other team would break out on like a 3-on-1. He would throw a guy off the bench to get a too many men on the ice penalty to stop the rush because you've already got too many men in the box. Who cares? He had a defenseman in net for a penalty shot instead of a goalie, and because the rule says the goalie has to stay in his crease until the skater crosses the blue line. It doesn't say anything about a defenseman, so he could just stand at the blue line as soon as you start. Knock him off the puck. Like, he found all these amazing loopholes. Sounds like the PWHL is tapping into that a little bit, and I love it. I wish they would do more.
Yeah, I really wish you would. It's fun. I think it does add a fun element to, I think, their particular sport, and I think some of the other regular sports, if you want to call it that, the guys have been around for a long, long time, should consider some change. Hey, speaking with the hockey tip, those Hamilton Bulldogs, I did say it. The Brantford Bulldogs right now are making noise. Like, I never expected this. First in the Eastern Conference, a couple of points ahead of Sudbury, 3 ahead of Oshawa right now.
Yep.
We're running out of games in the regular season.
Almost done.
They well could finish in first based on the fact that they moved from Hamilton to Brantford. All that controversy, a team with kind of no home for a little bit. They've been well adopted in their new home, in their new arena. Did you see this coming? No. And I will also advance the thought that I never saw this coming, because they had a slow start and then they kind of got a little hot, but you expect them to cool off. The trade deadline comes, they get rid of their best players, and yet they get better. What happened, Scott?
So you're right about the trade deadline, and we'll see when playoffs come if that comes back to bite them a little bit. But I don't know if it will, because they have been playing really well. I didn't expect first place. Let's put it this way, and I'll say this about Jay McKee, who's the head coach. 2 years ago, when they obliterated their own team records, finished first by a mile, went for like 2.5 months without a loss and all that stuff. You may remember Jay McKee wasn't even a finalist for Coach of the Year.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It was an embarrassing screw up by the OHL. They won't say it was a screw up. I think it was the coach from Mississauga got it, and they finished like 45 points behind Hamilton. I mean, it was something crazy. Jay McKee has to be the Coach of the Year this year. He has to be the Coach of the Year this year. And I don't know how the Bulldogs are going to do when it comes to the playoffs. They've got, if the season were to end now, I think they get Barrie in the first round. Nice little rivalry that's been built up there from past years now. This is a really unbelievable success story going into a new city, trying to win over a new fan base, and doing it in an unbelievable way. I'm happy for Matt Turek, who's the general manager. I'm happy for Michael Andlauer, who's found a landing place and the team's doing well. Happy for the players. It's a great story for them.
It really is a great story, and you're right that who knows what kind of run they're going to get into. And we always seem to hope that, one of our two teams in our areas here, the Niagara Ice Dogs, and who are coming along. But
they won't be in the finals.
They're not going to be. It's going to be a long road for them, but they're fighting back. And except for playing the likes of Bulldogs, they seem to be competitive, but they can't beat the Bulldogs for some crazy reason. But it's a lot of fun, I think, in OHL hockey right now. And you're right, because we well could be. The Memorial Cup is within driving distance for many of us here, and I'm going way too far here because there are so many good teams, especially in the Western Conference as well. Yeah. But boy, they can't compete. They've got some good rookies as well. They've really shocked and amazed, and I think it's great for Brantford especially.
Yeah, it is, and the West does have. I think there are 4 teams in the West that are ahead of Brantford right now in the standings. But they'll only play each other until the final. So if Brantford can get hot and go on a run, and these 4 Western teams do what often happens and just beat the snot out of each other. Remember what happened last time Hamilton? Now, I did the opposite. Hamilton made it to the finals. They got a Windsor team that was really, really good, but it had a hard playoffs, and Hamilton won that one. So, who knows? But again, if you're going to go to a new city, the thing you don't want to do is go in and finish in last place and create a whole lot of disinterest.
Good point.
They have done the complete opposite of this, and it's been just a terrific story.
So much that they may never come back, but that's a whole for another show.
Yeah.
Blue Jays now. Okay, what a weekend it has been. Alek Manoah diagnosed with shoulder soreness, misses his start against the Phillies on Sunday. Gosman, maybe their opening day starter. Shoulder fatigue? The guy, are we in spring? The Jays went out and got this guy from Cuba, Yariel Rodriguez. He's got a back problem right now. I don't know who's playing on third base. Do you have any expectations for this team?
I suddenly feel like I'm in an Abbott and Costello sketch. Well, Abbott and Costello sketch. Yeah. Who's on third? I don't know.
Who's on third? What do you have any expectation for this Bulldogs, this Blue Jays team, Scott? I don't know who they are, what they are. They, to me, did very little in the offseason. Nope. I've done enough talking.
No. They did very little. After the Ohtani thing fell apart, and I know a lot of fans talked about how, they were willing to spend $700 million or $800 million on Shohei Ohtani, so surely they should have been willing to spend $700 or $800 million on other players. It doesn't work like that. He was an investment. He was going to be a whole business unto himself. They felt that they were going to be able to recoup that in different ways. So I get that they didn't then turn around and spend that pot of cash on someone else. That was Shohei Ohtani money and his money alone. But yeah, they did nothing really other than that. They got the Cuban guy. Here's the thing. The Blue Jays last year had an unbelievably, extraordinarily, weirdly healthy pitching staff. I don't think they had a starter. Did they have a starter miss a single start last year by injury? I don't think so. I mean, as I say, you take out Manoah, really. Take out Manoah,
maybe.
And that was an injury, though. This kind of injury, maybe. I mean, he was struggling to figure it out. There's no way it was going to continue like that with no injuries to your pitching staff, with nothing going wrong to your pitching staff. So if you bank on things balancing out like they always do in sports, what that means is, okay, pitching is not going to be as good, barring some sort of miracle. So our hitting is going to have to pick up the slack and be way better. Well, what did we hear when Ross Atkins would talk and stuff? Well, we've talked about stuff. We've got a different approach. I'm sorry. I have little faith that having a new batting coach who's talking to you in different words helps you hit a slider better. I just don't. And maybe marginally, but is a new batting coach with essentially the same lineup, except for a couple of guys who were okay that are not there now, going to suddenly score you 100 more runs this year? I don't expect so.
Excuse me. I'm confused. And if this doesn't work out, is this Ross Atkins' job? Like, how much? I mean, some say he's lived 9 lives already.
17. I don't. What could Ross Atkins do to not have this job? I think that's a realistic question. He seems that he has the absolute ultimate defender in Mark Shapiro in his corner, and it doesn't look like Mark Shapiro is going anywhere. So I don't see. I mean, maybe if this year was absolutely catastrophically terrible, if it was Baltimore Orioles level from 5 years ago, maybe you start talking about that. But somehow I get the sense that even if that happened, Ross Atkins would be able to string together his word salad of explanations that use phrases that no one has ever constructed in a language before. Mm-hmm. And somebody in the head office would say, oh, I guess so. Okay, I don't really know what he's talking about, but it sounds like he's got a plan. I don't know up until this point, when you've had no success, and they have had, I mean, I don't care if you say they've made the playoffs. How many forget series, how many playoff games have they won, Bubba, under Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro?
None.
0 games.
None. And lost many of them in mind-blowing historical fashion.
Yeah. Pulling out a starter who was absolutely cruising last year was just, it still is mind-bending.
8-run lead at home.
It's just, yeah. What is the success that this duo has had? And they'll say, well, we've built up the farm system. Oh, we traded for so-and-so. We brought in so-and-so. Nice, lovely. What is the success that you've had? And maybe success is measured in different metrics for them as it is for fans who would like to see success on the field. Maybe success is we've pared down the bottom line. We're making some profits. We've fixed the stadium. We've made it look nicer. And if that's the metric, then they're good. But I think for most fans, they'd be interested in having a return maybe to 30 years ago.
Even 2014, 2015.
Even 2016.
Where you had a sniff.
Even 2016.
2016,
but 2015 with the Bautista home run, and then 2016 the Donaldson dash against Baltimore. Well, it was Baltimore, right? Texas
Rangers.
Any of those moments where at least you're not feeling like, oh, we're going into the playoffs here, and it'll be 2 games and we're out, or 1 game and we're out, or whatever the heck. I mean, there has been no success in a real way except for words.
Well, I feel like there's got to be a little pressure. There has to be some pressure. The Rogers Communications, they put in a lot of money into the team. Their payroll, if people want to know it or not, is upper echelon, top 10 in Major League Baseball. They put together billions of dollars to convert that ballpark over a 2-year span to make it a more fan-friendly. And everyone I know that's been there, I usually go and I sit in the media area, but the people that have actually gone and paid and sit in those in the new areas that were made in the outfield, they rave about it. They said it was an outstanding job. It's a really nice job. But I will go to a 51,000 seat Sky Dome that's full of concrete and see a winning team, right? That's what I'd like to see, right? Not as like, well, I can get Jamaican patties and eight types of beers over here at this one particular shop because it's such a great experience for the fan.
Here's the answer about Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro, though. So they have now, Mark Shapiro in particular, has built that Blue Jays training facility in Dunedin that gets raves.
Yep.
They have built the outfield neighborhood thing. They this year fixed the lower bowl. I guess next year is probably the 500 level. If I'm Mark Shapiro, I'm a little concerned that my building projects are probably done after next year, and then it's going to be baseball, and I got nothing to show for that. So if they have a terrible year this year, maybe you're right. Maybe with maybe he'll push to have a giant new parking lot built or something, or I just got to keep finding construction projects because that keeps me employed.
It's a good point. They do, for people that don't know, and many media members, I've utilized this. There's an underground parking. Why didn't they make a big it's very small. Like it's 2 levels.
For players mostly.
For players staff. And some staff. Why didn't they just make a whole underground parking lot? They could have made zillions of dollars off the 41,000, the 45,000 people that go there. Makes no sense to me. Anyway, let's move on. You talk about some of those winning days, and Josh Donaldson, you just said his name there, just retiring from Major League Baseball, 3-time All-Star, 2 Silver Slugger awards, AL MVP in his 13 years, that he enjoyed that with the Blue Jays. And he played a little over 3 seasons with the Blue Jays. He was well respected. I mean, I think Toronto has proven they love guys that work hard and grind hard, and he was successful. And along with Encarnacion and Batista were really the leaders of those 2 teams that went back-to-back to the postseason and got a sniff of the American League Championship. Do you believe that he belongs on the Wall of Excellence?
And he had a cool nickname, which always helps.
Yes.
I would say no, and only because he was a tremendous player and he did win the MVP with the Blue Jays. But as you say, it was 3 and a little bit years. To go up on the level of excellence to me is you got to be here longer than 3 years, or because Roger Clemens is not up there, right?
No.
Roger Clemens had 2 Cy Youngs and 2 Triple Crowns with the Blue Jays. So if you're going to go by short term but a burst of enormous success, I would think he has to be up there. Now, that's a complicated story these days, but nonetheless, I would think he would be up there before Donaldson would be. So, the guys who are up there, I'm trying to picture it now and think of the names who are up there. Delgado and Halladay and Stieb and Fernandez and, Alomar.
Alomar, kind of.
Alomar in spirit.
Yes.
And I'm trying to think who else, but they were all long-time guys who you think of.
Well, hold on. Alomar was
you think of him first and foremost as a Blue Jay. He was with San Diego first. He went to Baltimore. Yeah. When you think of Roberto Alomar, you think of a Blue Jay. You think of Dave Stieb, who pitched for Chicago.
Yes, you're right.
He was a Blue Jay. You think of Halladay, pitched for Philadelphia. Some people would say Philly, but many people would still think of him as a Blue Jay, and on and on and on. I don't know. Is Josh Donaldson? I don't know who you think of with Josh Donaldson. Oakland? Cleveland? I don't know. Who
I feel like his best years were with the Blue Jays, right? That's why I kind of think of him kind of as a Jay, because I feel like he was out in Oakland kind of wasting away.
Yep.
And the years in New York, there was so many other stars. He was just kind of one of the other stars, and he had a real downturn of his career as well too because of so many injuries. But I think of him as a Blue Jay. When I think of him, you talk the bringer of rain and a guy that was to be feared every single at bat.
Unquestionably. But I say for the level of excellence, let's pull it back to the Ticats for a second, because they've got their wall of honor. I don't think you would put someone up here who played 3 years and put them up there with the greats of the team who were synonymous with that franchise. Josh Donaldson, to me, would be a Blue Jay. and maybe to a lot of other people, but I would say great player, great time here, but I just don't know that I would include him yet or ever up there.
Can I give you 2 examples to maybe change your mind?
Go.
Here's one. I mean, and I know that he went the distance. Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, but he's never going to go up.
I'm putting him up. I'm putting him up.
The Raptors are not going to retire his number or put him up in their level of excellence. Now, what they may do is put a statue of him taking the shot. Mm-hmm. And if you want to have a statue of Josh Donaldson diving into home plate for the Donaldson dash, I'm all about that. That would be great. I would love to have, because unless I missed the announcement, there's no Bautista statue outside from the home run, is there?
No, but he's up there on the wall.
I know, but you know what would be fantastic? I know it's not my money, but if you're going to spend $400 trillion refinishing the stadium, a statue of Donaldson diving home in the dash, a statue of Bautista's home run, a statue of Joe Carter's home run.
Oh.
A statue of Dave Stieb grabbing his head after he finally throws the no-hitter. Mm-hmm. After all, I mean, you could have 15 around, like that Rogers Center, the courtyard or whatever you call it outside. It lends itself. It's got space for that. It would be fantastic to have the greatest moments in Blue Jays histories and statues.
Never thought about this. This is great.
I'm not paying the money for these. It's not my dough, but you're paying so much money to retrofit. Go down to Philadelphia, and outside the stadium there are statues of players. Go to Chicago. Harry Carey and Fergie Jenkins have statues outside there.
Scotiabank Arena with the Maple Leafs.
Yeah,
right?
it's outside. In Los Angeles, you have Magic Johnson, and you got Michael Jordan outside in Chicago. You got Dave Andreychuk holding the cup in Tampa. Mm-hmm. I would love to see that, and you don't think that people would wander all around and get their pictures with the statues of those great, great moments in Blue Jays history? Of course they would.
Right.
And, reality is, again, Mark Shapiro's got to find something to do to keep himself employed when the bill is. So it'll be the statue off season in 2 years.
Mr. Shapiro, you have a job now. Tiger Cats now. Hey, free agency is pretty much over. You know what? They re-signed some old faces, got some new faces. I don't know what your expectation is of this club. I don't know what our fan base is thinking. The Tiger Cats are the big name in town right now. But what I do know is that, and talking to several fans, is that they want to win. And you're right. I mean, I think we all do that. We think of a couple of Grey Cups losses, but then you look at the regular seasons, and this was what kind of surprised me, and I kind of dust this over because we always say, well, it's what happens after Labor Day in the CFL. You look at some regular season records over the last 5 years: 8-10, 8-6, the record-breaking 15-3 season, back to 8-10. 6-12. Those are the records that the Tiger Cats have enjoyed, or if you want to say have experienced.
Interesting word to choose.
The fans have, but like, are you used to mediocrity? Like I mean, other than the 15-3 season, which ended up in an appearance in a Grey Cup and an unfortunate loss in Calgary to the Blue Bombers. What's the expectation for Tiger fans?
Go back 30 years. Go back 40 years. How many exceptional regular seasons have the Hamilton Tiger Cats had? Very few. They have won Grey Cups, not for a while, but they have been a mediocre team consistently, traditionally, historically in the regular season. They just have. They've had some good years, but that 15-3 was an outlier. I mean, a good year is 4 games, 5 games, maybe 6 games over 500, and those are rare. So the answer to the question is, how are they going to do this year? Have they done anything? Look, free agency, they brought some guys, but a lot of the big signings, like Tim White, were guys that were already here. You are holding the line. You would have lost a lot if you walked away, but you haven't really added. The addition, where this team, I really believe, is going to ride or fall, where this team is going to win or lose, is the last year's free agent acquisition, who didn't play a whole lot, and that is there a chance that Bo Levi Mitchell can find the magic that he had in Calgary that got him the contract here. Can he stay healthy, and can he play at a high level again? And if he can, they're fine. Well, I don't know if they're fine, but they've got a good chance at winning the East. Toronto is, I think, a much weakened team from last year with their losses, and I don't believe Montreal is a great team. They got really hot at the right time last year, and they're a good team.
Yeah.
But I don't believe the East is out of reach for the Ticats if they have a quarterback who plays really well. I think they are right in the midst of it. But I think Bo Levi Mitchell is probably the most fascinating story in the CFL, certainly in the East this year. Which Bo Levi Mitchell is on the field when the season starts? If he is, which we hope he is.
I may be in the minority, but I thought I saw hints of it last year. There were games,
He couldn't stay healthy.
moments. You couldn't stay healthy. I mean, it really has like a 5-touchdown pass game in Ottawa, and then boom, on the last play of the game or the second last play of the game, he gets injured. It was just almost unfair what happened to him last year, where he just never really got enough time to get into a groove. And I guess we're hopefully going to see that this year. Let me ask you this: if things don't work out, whether through injury or not or performance, and Bo is out of the picture, if Taylor Powell is the quarterback of the Tiger Cats, do expectations drop completely to like, let's just get into the playoffs?
Yes, I would say they do, but that doesn't mean that the performance has to drop precipitously. I would think if Bo Levi Mitchell starts the season and we don't know. So let's just hypothetically, let's say Bo Levi Mitchell comes out and looks like a shadow of the guy that he used to be. And he's just throwing interceptions, because we saw interceptions like now. I mean, the ones, in the playoff game when he came in with 6 minutes left, that was totally unfair. He's now got to make a miracle happen. So I don't judge anything on that. But so let's say Bo Levi Mitchell comes out and is just not good. I think that a lot of people, to answer your question, will suddenly say, we're screwed. But again, I don't think that means the team has to be. I think that that opens the door for Powell or whoever else. It's not going to be Matt Schultz. He's gone to Calgary, but whoever else to see what they can do. And how many great CFL quarterbacks over the years got their chance because something happened that was unexpected, because a star went down and nobody thought anything of them. And all of a sudden they emerge and they are great. I'll name one, Doug Flutie. Doug Flutie was a gadgety guy at Boston College who hadn't done anything in the NFL, and he comes up here and gets his chance finally. And now, I know he's a one-off, maybe.
But it took him.
There's lots of others.
He was horrible in his first year in the CFL. Like, people forget that he was horrible.
But there's others. Go down the list. Calgary and BC, back 20 years ago, those franchises, it seemed like they had 4 quarterbacks deep, and they all became Hall of Famers at times, it seems. So you don't know, but I think that fans of Hamilton, are probably hoping they don't have to find out, that this Bo Levi Mitchell thing has the potential maybe to be retroactively the biggest free agent signing of the year, even though it's from a year ago. He works out. I think they have got a great chance at the East. And if he doesn't work out, then it's just a giant mystery.
Stay tuned. There's a guy by the name of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that right now, he's, his name. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander right now could be the best player in the NBA. And if you are looking at many people in the NBA that cover it on a daily basis and are looking at particular metrics and comparing him to the likes of Luka Doncic right now, who leads the league in scoring, SGA is number 2, they would tell you that SGA is a better player and that he should win NBA MVP, or at least he's the favorite to win it right now. What we do know is that he just recently won the Golden Horseshoe Athlete of the Year award. And Scott, from what you wrote, this is uncontested. We have never seen anything like this. Why?
Well, every year, so the Golden Horseshoe Athlete of the Year, for those who don't know, is the Hamilton-Burlington area's best athlete. And it started, I think the original thought that started 31 years ago, I believe, was, there were some great amateur athletes mostly. There weren't a lot of pros in the area. But over about the past decade, it's become really a really credible award. I mean, you've had Brandon Banks win it. You've had Mackenzie Hughes win it, and Laura Fortino, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Kia Nurse, and Sarah Nurse. I mean, these are big name athletes. So it's a legitimately good award. There's been a lot of great athletes who have come from here. This was the first year ever that the panel said, why are we even having 2 finalists when you know who's going to win? It's almost unfair to 2 other people to say, yeah, come to our dinner, and then knowing that there is no chance. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander right now, basketball is played, I believe, in every country in the world. Mm-hmm. He is one of the, whether it's second, or let's say he is one of the top 5, uncontested, nobody would argue that, one of the top 5 players in the world, on the planet. He already won the Northern Star Award, which is the old Lou Marsh Trophy, as Canada's top athlete of the year. He led Canada to the Olympics through the qualifying. He's second in NBA scoring. How is it possible that he wouldn't win the Golden Horseshoe Athlete? You can't tell someone you've got a chance. So he's basically broken the award is what's ended up happening. And now they're looking at redesigning it a little bit. So, because he's only 25. I think he turns 26 in a few days. Mm-hmm. He could be the guy who's the best athlete from here, probably will be for the next 5-6 years. Who's going to topple him?
I don't know, especially if he continues to grow and continue to get better, continue to demand more of himself, and then have it all come true. Like, it is incredible what a story he has become, considering his start in Hamilton, not making a high school team, switching schools, the Kentucky thing, like everything that he has done has been a growth. It hasn't been immediate. It's been growth. And a
surprise to people.
And a surprise to people.
Step.
At every step, he keeps shocking and amazing. And I think that's part of his mantra. I think that's one of the things that motivates him. I mean, I can't tell you exactly. I mean, I'm not him. But it's certainly, it's enough. He tweets, or at least goes on social media and says some things very quietly and talks a little bit, but it's all confidence. And it's so great to see him reach these levels. And
I don't think he will win the MVP this year, and I'll tell you why. Because the NBA, it's almost in some cases, award voting is kind of like ice dancing used to be in the Salt Lake City Olympics, where you have to put in your time and you have to be sort of chosen ahead of time. But here's the thing. I don't think he's going to win it this year. But now that he has injected himself into that discussion and has put himself front and center, I think next year there is a very, very realistic chance that he wins that award. Yep. And maybe for years to come, because don't forget, usually the commonly held belief is that athletes hit their peak at 27. That's where their physical skills and their understanding of the game sort of intersect at the perfect spot. Well, he's still 2 years almost away, if that's true, from being the best player that he's going to be. Barring some kind of injury, or barring Oklahoma City doing something wacky now that they're a contender and trading away a bunch of their pieces, which wouldn't make any sense, I would be almost shocked at this point if he didn't win an MVP award at some point, and maybe a championship.
Yeah, and that all's coming. I mean, the fact that they have like 15 first-round picks that they still have on top of this team that they have been building, and that he is at his age, 26 years old, that they're building around him, and he's the leader of this unit right now, and they're getting better and better. I mean, one of the top teams in the West, if not the top team in the West, and you're right, there could be a championship in his way. I mean, and don't stop now, because we're already seeing the likes of like Shaquille O'Neal. I remember hearing them talk about him when he got picked for, the NBA All-Star. I mean, one of the top 5. He was one of the 5 players to be named All NBA last year, and they're saying this guy works hard. So I think. And
the beautiful thing about it, he works incredibly hard, but when he plays, it looks absolutely effortless, and that's not an insult. I mean, people, it doesn't mean you haven't been grinding away in the gym and doing everything for hours, but it's fun to watch someone who looks like it comes so easily for. It doesn't. None of these guys it comes easily for. They all put in the work to get to this level. But, man, you watch him and it's just smooth and seamless, and it doesn't even look like he's tired most of the time. And it just, everything is beautiful to watch. He's a great player to enjoy watching.
Well, I'll do a Canadian hockey comparison. It reminds me of likes of Mario Lemieux. He's not working hard. No. Watch the guy. He's just gliding.
Yeah.
He's doing amazing things.
There are some guys who grind. They look like every step down the court is an effort. And, and there's other guys that look like they're just almost sailing over the top of the court. And that's what Shai Gilgeous looks like. He just looks like he's just gliding over it.
Well, just gliding right here on this show and gliding in the media world here is you, Scott Radley. And thanks so much for joining us here. It's been great chatting with you again, catching up with you personally, and, of course, talking to you about the daily goings-on of sports in our world right now. And it's a busy world right now.
It is a busy world.
We can do this again?
Every time Simone Lawrence is here, I expect an invitation shortly after. Got to keep up.
All right, Simone, you got to make some noise. Folks, thank you so much for joining us here. That's your Sportsline podcast for the day. And as you've just seen and heard, we love talking sports. If you do know of an athlete, team, or an event to promote the Sportsline podcast, do want to hear from you. Hit that like, thumbs up, subscribe, share, do all those great things. And if you got something to say, please comment, because we do really appreciate your opinions. For the wonderful people that make the Sportsline podcast possible, thank you so much. And we'll see you tomorrow.